Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you so much.
Such a catchy song. It's like been in my head nonstop.
Really?
Yes, it's
Oh
really
man,
good.
that's so awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. It's been in my head. I wrote it like 2 years ago. It's been in my head the whole time. So
And you wrote it, not to like get ahead of everything, but you wrote it about falling when you were falling in love with your girlfriend,
mm,
which I love. I love because I was reading an article about you,
cool.
and you were talking about how, which I'm a writer, not a musician at all, but I write, and I always think the best writing, it always has to come from truth and has to be vulnerable. And you were
Totally.
talking about vulnerability in songwriting.
Yes.
I love, and I think that's
Yeah. I think it's one thing that's been a little bit lost in some modern songwriting, because people have fallen in love with the craft only. And while I don't think that, because I love the craft, I love coming up with a clever way to say something. I love the slick production that we can do these days just on our computers and all these amazing things that we can do. But I think ultimately where songs come from is storytelling. And I think that storytelling, for it to hit the hardest, has to come from a vulnerable and real place. And I think what's interesting about, just like this song and other songs of mine is it's just a little snapshot of that moment in time. It's like my diary. So it's not that I'm this all the time or I feel this way all the time. It's that this is a sliver into what's going on at that moment. I think some people like believe, oh, because you write this way or because you felt this way in this moment, that's who you are. But it's really just a little snapshot of who you are in that moment, and it's illustrating an emotion. Like if you were to write in your diary, you're angry that day, and like you write some wild stuff, people aren't going to say that that's you. That's just you that day. You were going through something, you were feeling some type of way. So I just believe that, it's important to illustrate truth in your own life, in your own experiences, whether you pull from your own experiences or whether it's a direct story, because ultimately that's going to relate to the most people, and that you have the most chance of connecting with people and making them feel good. Even if it's a sad song, you can make people feel good because they feel connected to a mutual experience.
Absolutely. I mean, music's so powerful, and I think it touches people in so many ways that it's impossible to even realize what different songs mean to people. But
So true.
some of my favorite songs, like, could be a really depressing song, but it's still like there's something like nostalgic about it, or something that like makes
Right.
me feel good to listen to it.
Right.
So I love that too, because I'm such like a film nerd, and I think that's like what everything you said is very true in cinema as well. And
Of
if you look
course.
at like screenwriters, like their canon of work, really good ones, it's like, okay, you could see like this part of like this time of their life, maybe they're going through something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a neat snapshot. um I love too, so you've been writing since you were a kid though.
Yes, I,
What
I
about your
didn't realize how
teacher?
fortunate that I was to have had that exposure early, but I had a very influential teacher when I was young, who was just a music teacher at my school, but was very interested in songwriting and teaching us about songwriting. And he really pushed me to get into guitar. And that's the instrument I fell in love with as a storyteller musically, because I loved piano, but I didn't like sitting at a piano and being confined to the box of wherever that piano was. So guitar was the first instrument for me that really allowed me to flourish with writing, because I could take it anywhere and I could go set my mood based on the setting I wanted to be in or something like that. So yeah, I got fortunate to start really young, and it became an outlet for. Oh,
Oh,
did
there's
you go
Elizabeth.
away?
Yeah,
Oh, hi.
she's listening.
Sorry, I
And it
snuck in.
became an outlet for a lot of the things that I was going through, and a lot of the emotional stuff that anybody goes through growing up. And it became like my diary, that I could take even stuff that was really hard for me at the time and turn into something, like you said, that I loved. And I loved that you could basically create renewable energy in this sort of way of like taking something tough for you, putting it into a song, and then you fell in love with that song and it made you feel good. Like that to me was so trippy. It felt like fully renewable energy. You take the garbage and the
I love that.
muck of life and turn it into this energizing and inspiring thing for yourself and others.
I mean, I love that, and I think it writing is in itself so like cathartic and therapeutic. And I think even people that maybe aren't going to write professionally, I'm like, it's a good thing to do sometimes, because it's like,
Absolutely.
it just kind of like almost like a weight's been lifted if you're going through something and you just get it out.
Yeah, and the thing I always loved about songwriting was because there was a structure to it, right? Because there was rhyming involved and there was limited space and you were working with a melody, it forced you to analyze whatever situation it was, whether positive or negative, from kind of every single angle to get the right craft. So you were able to work through issues that you had, or emotional stuff, or even happy stuff, and look at it from so many angles because you needed to do so in order to fit it into the small box of a song. So I always loved that. Felt very therapeutic for me to be able to look at things from so many different angles and other perspectives and other people's perspectives. And that has always informed and helped my writing and also my therapy of writing.
Right. You're right about that too, because it is like, you have a very like finite kind of like sentences that you could actually fit in a song.
Right.
It is
not much.
You have to like hone it, and
Right.
I like that. I'm just curious too, like growing up, what were some of your like influences musically, just as a kid?
Man, I grew up across with tons of influence, everything from like pop to like people like John Mayer and Dave Matthews, like jam band stuff, to like hip hop, like Kendrick Lamar in high school and Jay-Z, and so Frank Sinatra, like just a wide gamut. I've always been, what I always say to people is, I've never been like the fan of music that has like my artist and I listen to them throughout the whole trajectory of my life. It's very like, I'll listen to an album or a song and I'll listen to that all the time for an extended period of time. And then I will move on to something else. And I'll always have a place in my heart for it. But I don't revisit stuff a ton. I'm not like remember listening to that. And the cool part about that is the way psychologically music works with memory is that every period of my life is very stamped by music. So like, when I listen to a certain artist that I was listening to at a certain time, I'm right in that moment, that part of my life where I was at when I was listening to that music. So in that way, it's cool. But it's been a wide variety of influences as far as music, and that's kind of informed why I like songwriting and production, as well as being an artist myself, because I like the unlimited landscape that songwriting and production kind of provides outside of artistry.
You're right. And I love that you just said that too, because you're right. If you have like certain songs that you're listening to at that like one particular moment in your life, that song comes on and it just like, you're there.
It becomes a
very cinematic.
It is. I think when you said cinematic, like that's how my brain works very cinematically. So like when I'm writing, I'm trying to imagine the movie screen, like the cuts. What am I seeing? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? I want it to be very sensory, and I want to feel a mood. I want to see images. I want to, my brain has always worked like that as far as cinematically. So I love TV shows and visual art, and all these types of things also inform my songwriting.
Yeah, I think like, you know, they're so interwoven, film and music. They just naturally have to be, I guess. So that makes so much sense to me. You're originally from
film has given personality to imagination.
Oh, I like
film has given like that lens that we've always seen, that people, when you told stories or listen to music, people have always had the imagination of being able to see worlds that they couldn't necessarily recreate. And luckily we're getting to the point with film, with the quality of the cameras and the quality of the equipment, where we can now represent our imagination in a real sense.
Right. And you're originally from New Jersey. How long have you been in LA for? And you went to school, you went to Berklee College of Music, I know that, back east. Yeah. But how long have you been in Los Angeles for?
It's been, I think, approaching 3 years in August.
I'm just curious because I actually went to school back east, but I do have a lot of friends that come from East Coast here, and I know, and living in New York, the music scene's it's very different. And I think maybe because New York, it's easier for people to go out maybe more there. I always feel like it's harder to get people to go out in Los Angeles. But did you see like a big shift, or was it any kind of like adjustment period for you being a musician and producer back east and then coming here?
You know, I think where I was at in New York, because I lived in Manhattan before moving to New York for about a year after I was at Berkeley. And what I have noticed over the course of my life with New York is that it's gotten more and more corporate. So really the art has been pushed more and more to the outskirts. Now it's in places like deeper in Brooklyn, it's in places like Hoboken, and it kind of just keeps getting pushed out. And so I found it to be a better place to be if you're a very established writer and producer, because, you know, all the studios there have had a really tough time staying open over the years. And, you know, my parents owned a tennis business growing up, so we would always get things like tickets to the US Open and stuff like that, which was great. But as the years went on, even that got more and more corporate. More and more banks started owning those boxes and those tickets and things like that. So I think by the time, the reason I left New York, number one, I loved California and the weather and things like that. But ultimately, that was more of a bonus for me than it was the primary reason. What I noticed about LA that was very different than New York is, even though it's a big city as well, there's so many more people here who are in the arts that I felt the momentum of being able to get in sessions and the momentum of being able to write with tons of people, and these opportunities were more tangible. Even though they might have existed in New York, there's, you know, 7 million other people who are doing things like banking and architecture and like just a wide variety of things, that there's not this sense of like you're tripping into situations like that. So I remember coming out here when I was still living in New York and being like, man, the momentum is just so different here that it's very palpable. And I had momentum in New York, and I had my people and I had my studios that I worked at. I was very fortunate to have connections at some great studios in New York. But at the same time, it was very isolated. It wasn't like, there was no branches that you could kind of like go down other than the finite ones. There was much more entrenched, I think, in New York.
I agree.
Than LA.
I agree with that. I mean, I love Los Angeles, and there is some weird Hollywood magic still, I think, to it. And it definitely, I agree with you. And it's just very unique kind of place. I'm glad you're here. I think everybody should be here. That is talented.
I feel the same way. I knew young, I was like, the second I can be out there, I know I'm going to want to. So I need to wait to go there until I'm really ready to make that move, because I know I'm gonna love it. I mean, the weather, just like, even if I wasn't in music, like the weather and like just the culture and being able to go like hike or go to the mountains or go to the beach. I mean, those things, it's just a beautiful. Actually, the first song that I put out when I was out in California is a song called "Found Her," and it's all about falling in love with California as a whole. And it was just really like my love letter to California, and was the main reason in a lot of ways that I moved out here, because I wrote it out here when I was on a trip, and I got back to New York and I was like, I think I need to go back.
So I love Songland, by the way, and I'm so glad that Audrey and Dave Stewart created this show that focuses on songwriting, which most people don't really see. They listen to music and I think there's like a disconnect. Oh, someone actually wrote this. So I love that this show exists and it's doing so well. How has that experience been like for you? I have to first of all, like Boyz II Men, Jesus Christ. I would freak out. Like when I saw all the
choir, I know. I was like, whoa. What? I was like, how is this happening? I loved the process. I was so in love with all of the people who were working on this show. I felt like it was a very special energy. Unlike other experiences that I've heard for people on other different reality type music shows, and not to put any of them down, they all have their own place, and I grew up on them. But I found it was a palpable difference with how the people who ran the show, produced this show, who were techs on the show, cameramen on the show, camerawomen on the show, like all of them just had such a genuine love for what they were doing and a genuine love for being able to be in the room and hear these songs. And they supported us so much. I found it to be like a second home for me, truly. And I mean that with no cheese factor, right. Just all love for the people who are producing and making the show and what they're trying to highlight. I think they treated us as professionals. Not one person did I see was treated any differently than the professionals that they are. So I I couldn't have asked for a better experience than the one I had, truly.
Glad you said that, because Songland now is in the second season, but also The Voice, which I've covered for a few years. The people that were behind the scenes that run it really care. It is different. It's very different than other reality shows.
Yeah.
Like what they've put together, it's people that really care about it and are passionate about music. And so I'm really glad you say that, because sometimes I say that people are like, oh, you're just, I'm like, no, it's true. Like the vibe.
Yeah, no, I'm a very big skeptic on that stuff. And I was blown away with the relationships that I had there and the connection. It felt very special. There's a special sauce somewhere in there of the energy and what it's doing. And I felt very connected to it, and I enjoyed my experience very much. Not to mention, like you said, it's Boyz II Men. Like, that's like, as far as being a singer and growing up, just idolizing people like them. And my grandfather was always bringing me to things like barbershop, where harmony, 4-part harmony, these things were so welcomed and appreciated. That was a huge moment for me. I mean, as singers, they're incredible. As songwriters, they're incredible. And as artists, I mean, it's just, it was a dream come true working with them in any capacity.
I feel like they've done music and it's so well for so long, that they're the kind of artist that if you're ever having a bad day, you'd be like, wait, man, Boyz II Men, pick my song.
Yeah. I know.
Like, I'm doing okay. I'm good. Pick my song.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, it's funny. Ryan on the episode even says, I've gotten a lot of cuts in my life, and I think Boyz II Men would still be one that I'm most excited about. And that's just the truth. They're just such an iconic group, and they're such good guys. From my working with them on the show, I just loved how they carried themselves, and they've definitely cemented a spot in history where people might expect them to be kind of holier than thou and above people, and they're not. Like, they're just genuinely good dudes who care about the craft, they care about the music and their people, and it's felt.
And you got to work with Esther Dean, who's amazing.
Incredible.
I think she's just incredible. Yeah. How was working with her?
She's a special person. We connected a lot on that show and working together, and we both kind of were immersed in the R&B hip hop world as far as like studio culture and things like that. I grew up going into studios from the age of 14, where I was around people, all the same people, like the Chris Browns and Miguel's and Busta Rhymes, and in those hip hop studios. So we had a lot to connect on that front. And then we both are definitely lovers of creation, like in general, not just music, but just the creation process and getting the best possible art out of whatever that you're doing. We actually had a really amazing talk on Instagram Live that she put on her page after I won. We had basically like an hour and 15-minute long talk about songwriting and our process, and just kind of like answer questions from people who were popping into the live. And yeah, she's a really special person. She really leads with her heart in music and has such a good feel for what is right and what is wrong. It's like her body kind of knows. She's very emotional with her writing, and I just think she's super talented. I mean, clearly with all of the success she's had across so many different artists and types of music, but that, not even that alone, but like her jump into film and television and those things. She's just really a special person. I'm grateful to have had that time with her.
Well, I think too, what makes Songland so special is you have these people that you work with. You have like Ryan and Shane and Esther that are such leaders in the industry, but also you and the other songwriters are already established songwriters, which is really, I love it, because it's very different than other shows, because normally it's like people just like coming out, or like they haven't really reached a place where they want to, they haven't had the exposure yet. So I think it's very interesting to have like people that are already very well known and doing really well in your field be on a reality show or a competition.
Sure.
It makes it very different, and it kind of makes the state, I feel like the level is even like higher than anything really out there. It's just really great and really fascinating to watch.
Agreed.
I just really love it. Do you have would you give any advice to maybe young musicians who are like watch the show and want to know how to get into songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is to learn an instrument of some sort that you can accompany yourself with. I mean, you don't necessarily need that. There's tons of like beats and instrumentals out there that you can like start writing to. But I think having an instrument that you can have a relationship with along with the writing is really important. I think, like you said, just writing in general is like a really cathartic, good experience. So like just keeping something daily where you write kind of what you're thinking, or whatever. And then just trying to surround yourself with other people who like it. Try to hop on, now we have technology where you can connect with people in so many different ways, where you can hop on and write different things together, or you can write over a YouTube beat or anything, and just study the best art in the world, study the best painting, study the best, musicals, study the best, everything that is art, because all of those dynamics and things that go into making great movies and great art and great songs, they all have overlap. So just becoming a lover of great products and great art as a whole, I think is a good place to start, and just continue to do it. Like try to put yourself in scenarios where you can do it more, get an internship at a studio, anything that gets you immersed in it. And you have to love it. You have to love coming back to it and love the craft, because I always say part of the talent is the obsession with that talent, more so than the talent itself, because it's taken me my whole life. I've been really working at it my whole life. And even though I was doing other things and in school and in sports and other things, it was always something in one way or form or another that I came back to and immersed myself in.
I'm curious too, when you're writing a song, because you yourself are an artist, so is there a difference? Like, do you write songs and then present them to people, or if you're writing a song is there like just a different process, I guess, writing something for yourself versus writing it for someone else? Or are there songs that you create that you just want to keep to yourself and not give to,
Yeah, that's kind of the songwriter's dilemma right there, of writing very personal stuff and then kind of giving them off to somebody else. But I think it's all different. Like my preferred way of writing is always from real experience. If I'm writing for another artist, truthfully, I'd prefer to be with that artist and kind of have like more of a therapy session almost. And I don't even mean to make it clinical, but like really diving deep with them on, what are you going through right now? What is making you feel one way or another? And building and crafting from that true organic place. Like that is my ideal way. If I'm writing with somebody else, and the most success that I've personally had is either from doing that with myself. So if it's for another artist, like the 2 songs that I have out right now as a writer, which is the Boyz II Men song, and then another song with an artist 220 Kid and a featured artist Gracie, which is in the UK, and it's doing very well. Both were very personal songs for me, and I pulled them from very personal, real, authentic places in my life. And then the stuff that I've written with artists where I get to be in the room with them and go back and forth with them, and where are you at, like what's going on. I find that authenticity and vulnerability is the best place to come from. And I'll say sometimes it can be a little bit different when you're pitching to somebody else versus myself, but always I want it to come from an authentic place, whether it's that artist's authentic place or it's my own. So I could say, no, there's not much difference. Okay. It's about where that authenticity comes from.
Again, I'm just really glad that you're emphasizing the authenticity, because I think some of the things that are most painful to write about sometimes, or it's like kind of like, oh, I don't really want to end up being the things that people relate to the most.
Absolutely. And like, even this song for me was super, like, these are like pages out of my diary. And I think what people miss is when you're writing this stuff, you're not necessarily writing like, oh, when the world hears this and is singing along, you're just writing and getting it out. And then that's kind of the byproduct of what happens later. And I think that you kind of do have to forget about the people listening to it to really get to the authenticity and the core of what you're trying to say. And then, like you have these moments, you're like, oh, right, this is now going to be out in the world, and like a huge audience is going to hear this. And those same like nerves that are there if you were like, hey world, here's my diary, read it.
Yeah,
Like
look.
you would feel the same way, you know. It's so that's the interesting part about the whole process, is that it's like it is very vulnerable and scary at times, even though it is beautiful and fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably why your music, people relate to it so well, though, because of that. I mean, I know that's why. But what are your plans next? Like, are you going to be working on more music for yourself, or producing maybe for other people, or you just kind of see
a combination of both. I'd really love to do a lot more songwriting at bigger levels than I have. I mean, these last couple songs that I've written, that I've put out, have had some fortunate success, and I'm grateful for that, and I'd like to do more of that, and also just continuing my own artistic journey and putting out new music. There's a bunch of music I'm working on personally right now, and just really trying to get the right people around me and the right team around me to build myself as an artist as well as a songwriter. So, you know, it's just about continuing to do what I love to do and create art. I mean, I've done this for my whole life before I made a cent off of it, and I would do it even if there was no money in it for the rest of my life. But, you know, I'd like to really transition into doing it at a bigger level with bigger artists and helping them get to their authentic core and get more authenticity into their own music, and then also be putting my own life into my own music as well. So just a healthy combination of both, and how that looks, I'm not sure yet. But I know it'll look like more music coming from my side and more music coming from other artists that I work with.
Well, I hope when people are allowed to go to things again, that you perform in Los Angeles, or you do some playing around here. I absolutely want to see you play live. That's what I'm really missing, is going to the movies and seeing music. That's like, I'm like,
I know. In a lot of ways, like the homebody in me is like enjoyed the time that I get to kind of just really focus on my craft, but I miss having the ability to go to friends' shows and like go to play my own shows and really connect in a real way with a live audience and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm hopeful that these things clear up soon, and I know that people are going through a lot of hard stuff right now. So I'm hoping that we get through it to get over that sort of stuff too, because there's a lot of tension and a lot of pain right now in the world for a lot of different reasons. And I would love to kind of come out the other side and have it be a little brighter.
Well, music helps with that. So I am grateful for people like you, because it definitely, when, you know, times are weird, music.
Yeah, art in general.
Absolutely.
I had a teacher in college that said more art, less war.
I love that.
And I just couldn't agree with it more.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, ChrisLee. Wait, your Instagram, I'm going to put it in the bottom, because that's, I think, probably the easiest way for people to follow along what you're doing. But what is it again?
It's ChrisLee Music.
Yes, perfect. But thank you so much for talking to me, and congratulations.
I absolutely love it. Your questions are great. I love that you care about depth and, all the stuff that I care about. So it was really special.
Well, I love your answers, because not that, you get it, like not that many people will just authenticity and vulnerability, or what, because that's what matters, like, to me in writing. Like, that's like the core of it all. It's like, just whatever it is, just be you.
To me, that's true strength, being able to lead with that vulnerability and truth, even though it's hard. I mean, I think that's what makes it the biggest example of strength and ownership of self and non-ego.
I love that. I love how you put everything. You answered everything perfectly.
Oh, I'm glad. Hey.
It's so nice to meet you via Zoom, and
yes,
I will be looking, because I definitely want to see you perform. So I will be keeping an eye out, and
cool.
Hopefully
I'll be doing some more like live stuff, like
awesome.
from quarantine, and I'm getting the kind of audio rig together to get it to be good sound, and try to embrace where we're at with technology and stuff like that. And I'm really grateful that this stuff can even happen, which is great.
Funny, I'm trying to get like this little adapter piece that you could put on your camera for the computer to so it's better quality video if you're doing Zoom, and it's like sold out everywhere, because I'm like,
I know the music equivalent of that is also back ordered for sure, because everyone's like, I need good audio, I need good video.
Yeah, that's why I felt like, oh man, but I can't do what I can for now. Thank you so much. And
thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh my God, totally.